heard that, right?
Kick it back on, dude. It pegged red. As soon as he turned his camera off, it pegged red. Let you guys see it. It was pretty cool. There it is. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. You see it, Joe?
I see it.
It's not necessarily a paranormal investigation, and we caught something on film the first time. It's got to go in, man.
Wow.
My name is Joe Woody. I've been an avid fly fisherman in these Appalachian mountains for the past 25 years.
There it is.
Woo! Got it. Oh, he's colored up beautiful. And in that time, I've not only heard about some interesting stories, but also encountered some unforgettable situations myself.
I don't remember where he went. He was gone. Who am I talking to? First of all, who am I talking to? God?
So come along the journey with me as we dive deeper into these stories of forgotten streams of Appalachia.
We can't put that in there, Josh. I love being in nature. I love it. I love the peaceful action of a good cast, the catching of a brook trout in a small stream. But there have been times when that tranquil nature disappears in a split second. I had an experience in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park where everything changed in a heartbeat. The peaceful, tranquil nature I was experiencing went away just like that. And I went from a peaceful, transforming, therapeutic session to adventure and suspense before I could blink an eye.
Let me tell you something that happened October of 2022. Do some trout fishing in Forney Creek with some really dear friends of mine. And so I was coming in a couple of days later since they were there. They were there, set up in their campsite. I parked my car on the road to nowhere. Road to nowhere, it comes out of Bryson City, comes into a tunnel. You walk through the tunnel and poof, the Smoky Mountains are there in all its majesty and all its wilderness. And the further you go back through the tunnel, the more wild it gets. So I had one goal, well, I had a couple goals, but my main goal for that weekend was to go and visit the Woody Cemetery, which is on a place called Gray Wolf Creek. But I was going to meet my friends on Forney Creek. We got there. My plan was to set up, fish with them for a day, and then spend a couple of days in Forney Creek by myself, just fishing, exploring some waters I hadn't fished in a while. And then make sure that I went to the Woody Cemetery. From what I understand, there were a lot of my kinfolk were buried in there from the 1800s, and I wanted to see it. I just wanted to see it.
Yeah, be careful coming down through here, man. I should catch some fish right here. I'm going to try to get on these rocks right here and throw it up in there, but we'll see. Nice little rainbow. It was not little. It fought like a wild fish fought. It took it up there in that waterfall right up there. And we had to get it. There's just no way to get to that fish up through there. I'd have to climb down those rocks, and that's probably not the best way to do it. It's a nice stocked rainbow. Now that's about average size for when you get them in here. They're fun to catch, that's for sure. But that's the type of fish we'll catch up through here, those and big browns. And A lot of people don't come up this far. They fish down there in the section that we just fished and then stop, go down, but they don't really come up these steep banks and steep trails very much. I've seen people fishing up here before, but not very many.
So I spent the first night, sat around the campfire, talking, just having a good time. Next morning, I walked them to their boats. They got in their boats, went back across Lake Fontana, waved goodbye, immediately got right in the creek. So I got in where Fontana Lake comes into, where Forney Creek comes into Fontana Lake, and started fishing Forney Creek up past the campground. And I was going to fish it all day long. So I fished up past the campground, walked about another, I think it's about 4/10 of a mile up to where Bear Creek Trail comes in from the left. You go across the bridge, and there's an island in Forney Creek right there where Forney Creek splits, comes back in right at the bridge. Bear Creek comes in from the west into Forney Creek right about, I'm gonna say right about here. I think that's Bear Creek Trail right there. Busted through some brush for about 15, 20 yards, got down into the water and started fishing. Caught a fish or two, nothing to write home about, but I missed a couple, caught a fish or two. Not far into the fishing trip right there, I started to hear a noise coming from my left on an elevated plateau above the creek. And I didn't think anything of it. It was so evident and clear that it was a group of, I thought it might have been a family, because I heard distinct noises of children laughing, kind of like they would be singing and dancing around a campfire, like families would do in any type of camping scenario. So I didn't even think about it. I just knew that's what it was. Now, sometimes in a river we have, I call them river voices. Sometimes the creek coming over the rocks, you can hear like a whisper. You know, you get used to that. You know it, you know what it is, and it's a voice. It's nothing, it's no big deal. But this is not what I heard. I heard legitimate children, happy children, frolicking.
If you've ever been stung by a jellyfish, just a slight sting in the ocean, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is a plant called stinging nettle. If you're ever walking through the forest with shorts and you brush up against this plant, you see there's little thorns, little bitty stingers on the underside of the leaf, on the stalk. And it feels like a tiny, slight jellyfish sting. Not bad, but it's enough to irritate you. And usually, when you find stinging nettle, you find other plants associated with something that might harm you. I'm not saying stinging nettle will harm you. As a matter of fact, stinging nettle is one of the most nutritious plants you can eat out here, especially in a tea. If you've got a cold, things like that, people love nettle tea. But as you can see right here, surrounded by the stinging nettle, you also got a lot of poison ivy. The 3 leaves right there. And many times, wherever there's stinging nettle, you'll find a plant we call jewelweed, and I'll show it to you in a minute. Generally, they grow in the same location. Jewelweed is a natural, I wouldn't call it a cure, but it's a relieving ointment that you can just rub up in your hands, rub it on whatever you got there, and it'll take it away. It'll take away the sting. It counteracts the acid and the poison ivy. The wind has started blowing downstream. It's gonna be a difficult cast. Let's see what I can do. Take it back through the trees, turn it left. There it is. One followed it a minute ago. Worried about that limb right there. Let's see if I can get it up. Boom, right there. That should be a fish. Oh, got him. And he went through the hole.
Nice fish. Yeah. It's a really nice fish. Alright, come here.
I think we're using it.
Mess. After.
Right about here, I immediately started hearing sound like kids playing. So I didn't think anything of it. So I fished up a little bit more, heard it again. So I decided to go up, climb the little bank that was there, and go up and see this family up there camping, because I knew they were there. And so I climbed up the bank, stuck my head over, nothing. There's nothing there. And it kind of, I still wasn't really spooked about it. I just thought it might have been someone down the creek or something like that. The sound had, but there was nobody in the campsite I'd left. I was the only one there, and I was trying to figure if I'd seen anybody. Had not. So I climbed back down in the water, started fishing again. And I came up to, there was a log across the creek that I climbed up over and sat down on that log. And when I sat down on the log, I was just sitting there, looked over to my right, and a beach, like a sandy beach, had developed in the bend of the stream. When we went back, it had been washed away, the sand was no longer there, but at that point it was a sandy beach. It was 10, 15 feet across, like this, like an oval beach. 15, 20 feet long ways, 10, 15 feet across. And I looked down, I saw a footprint there. And I was like, well, okay, that's kind of, I love to track. I like to go see, especially see if I can figure out how old that footprint is. I can tell by the deterioration of the sides of the track. You can come up with some type of algorithm in your head, how old it is, how long ago was that print made. So I walked over to it, I climbed out off the log, walked over to it, looked down at it, and what struck me about the footprint was how small it was. Okay, well that's either a lady or that's a child. And I was like, I thought it was fairly new. It didn't look like it had been, had been there very long. And I was like, well, that's a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird. I haven't seen anybody else. Then something strange hit me. Very strange. There was only one footprint in the middle of that beach, just one. So I said, okay, there's gotta be it. So I circled it, looking for another footprint. There was none. There was not another footprint. At this point, I'm trying to figure this out. It's a mystery, and when you get a mystery, you got to solve it. So I said, okay, I'll let me ponder this for a little bit. And so I went back to fishing. Just a few minutes later, the sound of the kids frolicking came back over the same ridge that I'd investigated a little bit before. I said, so I got to get to the bottom of this. I've got to get to the bottom of this. I walk back to the creek. I remember getting halfway, 3/4 away to the other bank. The water was low, because I could, you know, when you get in there real high, it's kind of hard to navigate right there. But it was fairly easy to navigate that stream. And as I started following that sound to go find out what it was, and I took a step, and the sound that was in front of me did a 180 and came from behind me. I remember turning, looking back, and going, and I could hear it in that island. And that island was just nothing but rhododendron. You could get through it, but there was no way, in my belief, that there could be kids out there dancing and singing. It was impossible. So still, I said, okay, I'm just going to go back to my campsite and think about this for a while. I sat down in my camp chair and was about to doze off. I remember just sitting there. He didn't have any arms, so I remember sitting there like this. And it was, at this point, it was in twilight. The sun was not down. It was the beginning of twilight. And 2 park rangers walk into my campsite. And I remember like looking up, and these 2 park rangers are coming up from the lake, walking into my campsite. And I remember looking at them because it kind of surprised me. And I remember saying to them,
"What I owe the pleasure of you guys being out here Sunday night at dark?"
Oh, we're just out here checking up on folks.
I kind of giggled, very lighthearted. They asked me what my name was and those type of things. And then the one park ranger asked me, "Do you have your reservation?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got it, but I don't have a copy. I have a copy of my phone, I believe." She said, "Well, you need to go get it now." I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll go get it now." You know? And so I went over, and when I stood up, I carry a big buck knife on my hip. When I stood up and they saw the buck knife, they both got in a defensive posture. And when I say defensive posture, like they were ready for anything. And it went from no pressure whatsoever to high pressure, just like that. And they said, "Sir, whatever you do, do not put your hand on your weapon." And I remember I looked at them and I said, "Why would I do that?" And they just said, just go get show me your reservation. Went over, fumbled around a little bit, produced my phone. I said, "It's in here." She goes, "Bring it to me." And it was in a very forceful voice. So I brought it to her. We talked a little bit. She started quizzing me on everything about my reservation, where I parked, what kind of car I had, made sure my name was what it was. They may do that with everybody, I don't know. And then they asked me what my tag number was, and I said, well, I don't know what my tag number is. You know, at this point, I'm actually want to ask them to show me their identification at this point. You just didn't want to get to this point. And we had some other questions, some other things were said. Finally broke it down a little bit, and they said, okay, everything checks out. And I remember asking, is there anything going on here? And what they told me was,
well, I think it'd be a good idea if you want to home tonight. It's not safe out here by yourself.
And left it at that. I was like, okay, all right. And so we said goodbyes, and I sat back down in my camp chair, and I started thinking about the weird encounter I had up the creek with what I don't know, have no idea what it was, had no idea what it could be. And then the park rangers come in and tells me to be careful and be, you know. So I, being of sound mind and spirit, packed my stuff up and got out of there. Now, I'll go back to the first of the story. My goal was to see the cemetery.
I'm thinking that right here where this creek comes in, some of these delayed harvest fish may be congregating in here. So we'll see. Let's see what happens. They're kind of like swimming up to it, and then right at the last second, just turning away. They've been bitten 2 or 3 times today or something. These fish were put in here in this lower level stream, in this delayed harvest stream, about 2 weeks ago. And so it's allowed them to become a little bit more stream-wise. And they're not as quick to bite as they were that first week. So right now they're kind of looking at it a little more because they've been fished here all day long. What I'm doing is I'm throwing it around that tree. See that tree right there? I can do it, but I'm trying to do it out and turn it back around in that hole. See how it does right there? And if it flows right in that spot, they're feeding right, that's their feeding lane right there. There it is. Woo! Hold them like this right there. See that? He's a live one. That was a nice size one right there. Oh, they're starting to forget I'm there. They try a couple more casts. See those bugs starting to come down the water? Night, they just started feeding.
Anybody had just gone through those last few hours by themselves in the wilderness probably wouldn't go into a cemetery at dark out in the wilderness. But that was my goal for being out there, was to go see the cemetery. From what I understand, there were a lot of my kinfolk were buried in there from the 1800s, and I wanted to see it. I just wanted to see it.